Did we do it? Did we do it? We did it. Look at us. Crushing it. Crushing it. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I had a terrible night of sleep. I am depressed. Today has been basically me just taking care of my little dog, making sure that he's had the peas and the poos and all that. Honestly, if it wasn't for him, I'd probably have just stayed in bed today. Didn't even do a video today. Just thought to myself, nah. Even us YouTubers need days off, need time off, all of that kind of stuff. But now I'm in one of my Patreons has contacted me, and they have a burning desire to do some writing, and they're not sure, really, like they're just starting out. The desire is there, the urge to do it, and you have to pay honor to that. And so they're bouncing ideas off of me and talking to me about their ideas, and that's rather fun. That's rather fun. I pretend to be a writer myself. Hey JC, how you doing? I hate capitalism too. Oh, how about that? I have pretended to be a writer in my life, right? I have actually significantly I have actually completed a script that will never ever be made, and I know it will never be made because it's a script that requires like a go-ahead by Disney, no less. It's about it's a redemption arc about the character of Jafar from Disney's Aladdin, which I think is done without revision. It's done successfully. It's honest. Jafar honestly goes through his back history and changes. Remember, of course, he's a genie now, right? So the story is cosmic in its scale and all this. And honestly, I am quite proud of that script. I'm quite proud of that script. Even if it never gets produced, even if nothing happens with it, the simple doing of it makes me feel very, very good about myself and very powerful about myself and very, very much. I'm very pleased with that story and how it came to an end, and the process of writing it itself was so enriching. And that's the thing about the arts. Like, that's the thing about the arts. Capitalism ruins the arts, right? Because artists get caught in this idea of, oh, I've got to sell it. I've got to create something that is saleable. Got to create something that's consumable, right? And of course, this enters the corporate desire of it has to have mass appeal, right? You can't simply produce something because it fulfills something in yourself, right? And if only a small segment of people look at it and are enriched by it as well, that's not good enough in a capitalist system, right? Why not try to sell it to Disney? Didn't they make Revenge of Jafar film in the 90s? The Revenge of the Jafar film was a direct to forget about Revenge of Jafar. Just forget about that. Like, that's a direct to television, direct to video. Who cares, right? Who cares? Disney will not look at scripts from anyone except people who work directly for Disney. So if I wanted to even show them this script, I would have to get a job at Disney in some capacity. And frankly, I'm not interested. And there's a reason why Disney is producing garbage. Like, straight up. Like, Disney has become incestuous. That's why all their stuff is bad now. Because they refuse to actually find real artists, right? Everything is about just commercialism. Everything is about like a meta commentary on Disney itself. Everything is about like, and just take a look at what they did to Star Wars, like to realize that Disney is not capable of producing good stuff anymore. Like, their content is bad, and a big reason why their content is bad is because they own like 80% of the market share. Like, last year, Disney made 80% of the money in the entertainment industry. Like, that's a monopoly. And because they're incestuous, because they just only they won't even look at things if it doesn't come from in-house. And because of this, they're constantly, like, Like, take a look at their Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast, the remake, right? Like, the whole thing was just a series of revisionisms and a series of commentaries on the previous work, right? They didn't set out to actually tell a good story, right? They set out to placate their base, because Disney itself has become like a political organization in and of itself, where there are like Disneyites, and they're building like a Disney town, and there's Disney World, and there's all this kind of stuff, and they are like a political force in and of themselves, and they are attempting to be something of a moralizing agent in the world. And sure, it was to keep their IP, but like, they could have told a good story, well told, right? Just a very straightforward story. But instead of that, it was littered with like, it was just littered with these compromises or changes or ways to alter the story. And I take a look at their live action Aladdin. Like, their live action Aladdin is, in my view, literally just like the laziest story told in decades, right? That like, literally they have scenes where like the scene is calling for like parkour, like it's calling for like a significant acrobatic sequence, which Disney could do. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, right? And they could have easily, like, they have Jackie Chan's number, right? They have access to one of the greatest stunt teams that exists in media today, right? Jackie Chan has worked for Disney on several occasions, right? Like, and why wouldn't you want someone like this tied to your project? Why wouldn't you want that kind of thing? But the film just reeks of laziness. Like, literally, you watch Disney's Aladdin, and every single shot, you can just see the director just like say, he might as well be. I have this image of the director, and for some reason he's in like one of those brown blazer jackets with like the patches, right? And he's smoking a cigarette, and he goes, "Cut, good enough, move on." And that's like almost every shot, right? And you can see it in Will Smith's performance as the genie. Like, I wasn't against that casting choice, but like, it was obviously done as a way to like, oh, Will Smith will draw in seats, get seats and butts, right? And so instead of getting like a good performance, they were just going for like star power. And Will Smith, you could basically see him. He was like sitting there with his phone, being like, talking to his agent, being like, "Oh, what's the next project? Oh yeah, another Men in Black movie? Yeah, sure. Oh, hold on 1 second. Action. Hey, how you doing, Aladdin? Cut. Yeah, okay. So Men in Black 4? Yeah, sure. Sign me up." Like, that was basically Will Smith's performance, right? Like, it wasn't really good. It wasn't interesting, really. Like, and what's so unfortunate about that performance from the genie is that the Broadway version of Disney, the fellow who was playing the genie on Broadway would have been spectacular. Like, he would have been very, very good. Like, his physical appearance is a touch a kilter, right? You can see who I'm talking about if you watch the musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you watch the musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he plays the musical demon in that episode, and he's great. Right, and I've seen his performance as the genie. He's great, right? And the fact that they passed him up for like this star power is, in my view, a real missed opportunity, and really speaks to the incestuous nature of Disney. That instead of trusting art, and instead of trusting artists, and instead of trusting that if you put someone up there and people will be like, "Oh, whoa, what's weird?" But then the buzz of his performance, which would be excellent. He's been playing the character for years and does a very good job. And in my view, does a really good job of claiming the character as his own. Because that was always the big thing about Will Smith, is like, oh, well, it's that Robin Williams. Like, Robin Williams is that character, right? Like, it's a very like Robin Williams character. And so the other fellow, and of course his name is escaping me, but he had managed to really make the character his own, and really not really like tip of the hat to Robin Williams, but move on and do something that is true and genuine to himself. Whereas Will Smith didn't really care. Like he really did. It was basically just blue Will Smith, right? Like there wasn't really a character there. I think is really what it comes down to. Like it really was just like Will Smith does whatever, and like very odd decisions if you ask me. Like the introduction of Jasmine's song, like, and I understand why they wanted to give Jasmine a song, but it didn't make sense narratively. Like one of the great faux pas of musical. There's actually this really, really interesting. There's this really, really interesting story of Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is cast as the lead in A Streetcar Named Desire, which is a musical, right? But he is not a musician, right? Like he's not a singer. He's not a musical, right? Like he doesn't do musicals. Oh, we're getting people saying the stream is cutting. Oh, hold on. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, view. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's take a look. Error, YouTube not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Don't know why that's happening. You know what I might do? I might turn off the recording and just do the stream itself. I'm a bit worried that the recording is interfering with the streaming a touch. Yeah, getting a pretty bad up and down here. I don't know what to do about that, honestly. I don't know what to do about that. Poor. Hey, Stella. So, I'm just going to have to keep on going. Keep on trucking. Yeah. So, sorry, guys, if it's a bad stream today, but nothing I can do about it, honestly. And the... yeah, of course the original Aladdin had more heart put into it, right? Like and so Marlon Brando gets cast as the lead in A Streetcar Named Desire, which is a musical. He's not a musician, like he's not a singer, right? And what's funny about that is that cast beside him is Frank Sinatra, who is a well-known singer and a well-known person, right? And so this creates a lot of tension, right? This creates a lot of tension on set, as you can imagine, because Frank Sinatra wanted the lead, which made sense because he's the singer, right? But Marlon Brando gets it, and Frank Sinatra's role has no singing, right? So this puts a lot of heat, frankly, on Marlon Brando. And Marlon Brando ends up asking a very simple question. And he's one of the first people to actually ask the question, which is, why the hell are people singing? Why the hell are people singing at all? Like, what is this singing? Like, suddenly there's a scene and then suddenly I sing a song? What the hell? What is it? And Marlon Brando really articulated something that's fundamentally true about musicals, which is that the reason why a person sings, when a person sings in a musical, they're taking their internal desires and their internal thoughts and sending them into the world through song. That they have to articulate it through song because they lack the ability to articulate it any other way. And that's what's crucial. And you see musicals all the time break this rule, and it is a rule. Think about Somewhere Over the Rainbow, right? Somewhere Over the Rainbow is, in my view, like the quintessential musical song, right? That without that song, you don't get Dorothy's internal desires articulated at all, right? Her desire for some kind of better life than the life she's leading now. This sort of bittersweet tune that the producers originally wanted cut from the script, because it didn't further the plot. It wasn't like a big thing, but it followed this musical rule. This musical rule of it articulates her deepest desire in a way that is not articulated anywhere else. And you see musicals break this rule all the time, right? Like, I think Disney's Hercules, right? Like, Hercules literally says the lines, I just feel like I don't belong anywhere, right? I feel like I don't understand. I'm going to one day find a place where I belong. And then he sings an entire song, about those lines that he just said. And that's breaking that rule, right? Don't have your people actually say the shit. Have them just sing it. Like, if they're going to sing it, don't have them say it. And so tying it all back to the Aladdin and Jasmine's song breaks this rule completely. It's completely unimportant. She articulates this internal desire of hers through other means. And in that moment, she like literally sings a song about how she won't go down silently, and then she does a speech about how she won't go down silently. It's like, you gotta pick one. And like, the song itself is like a pretty big pander, right? Like, it doesn't have much to do with her character or who she is. And honestly, I feel like Jasmine as a character, even in the original 90s version, like, she was very spicy. She was not putting up with any kind of bullshit, right? She was presented as a very capable and strong woman in the first place, right? So why does she need this song about how she's been silenced and all this? And it's like, has she been? So it's like this incoherent song that's just kind of in the middle of the narrative that's clearly a pander. Like, you really, really can see, like, the vice president's daughter is like, I wrote a song for this, and you should do it, daddy. And like, they just like, okay, my daughter wants this in the thing, right? It really smacks of that. So it's like, and so Disney, I'm like fucking 20 minutes into the stream, but I really like, Disney is important to talk about because it is a massive cultural institution. They own Star Wars, they own Marvel, they own enormous. They own Fox now, right? They own The Simpsons, right? They own The Simpsons, for Christ's sakes, right? They're an enormous cultural institution. And like all institutions in America, they are corrupt. They have been corrupted, right? They are now no longer capable of rationally responding to the populace. And they're just, all they're doing is responding to themselves. That's all they're doing. They're responding to themselves now. And so it's become incestuous. I'll take a look at that, Pissed Off. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. And so ultimately, like, a story, and you can see how this incestuous kind of nonsense is really infecting a lot of their work. Like, take a look at Cruella. Right? Their attempt to rehabilitate this overt psychopathic villain in their history, right? Like, Cruella de Vil is a fucking psycho. Her whole thing is that she wants to kill puppies to make a coat. Like, that's her whole shtick. And so they made this movie about her, and instead of and it's a prequel, it's like the rise of Cruella. And instead of really showing how she becomes like a psycho, they basically revised the character and just make and like soften her in many ways. And like, she's audacious, certainly, as Cruella would be, but like, she isn't who she is in the end. Like, she's a different character completely. Because Disney can't accept the idea that some of their characters are pretty unrepentantly evil. And the way that they are dealing, like, they want to, and I think the idea of a retribution arc is interesting, but if you're going to do a retribution arc, well, you need to have them be evil first, right? That if you want to redeem or have a retribution arc for Cruella, she has to go through the original events, and then you launch her off, right? But Disney's not really in the business of making good art. Right? Like, they're not really in the business of making good art. And what's horrible, in my view, is that people are going and seeing it anyway. Like, that's the thing that's really killing me, is that people are now going to the movie theater expecting the movie to be bad, and they're going anyway. Right? Like, that's and then they well, Joker is different. Joker is different because Joker actually creates a it's not revisionist, right? Like that's the thing that's super important about this retribution idea, right? Or this not retribution, this rehabilitation idea, right? Like Joker ends up being who Joker is, right? He's a mentally deranged serial killer. That's who Joker becomes in that narrative. They don't pretend as though it's anything else. They just create a narrative that places the blame less on the individual and more on the larger, wider society. That ultimately Joker becomes a critique of the society, which is why people really hate it, honestly. And a really interesting thing happened with Joker, which is that every single review I read that gave it a negative review literally did not talk about mental illness. Like, the film is about mental illness. That is a major theme of the film of Joker. And reviewers they didn't even talk about it. Or if they did, it was buried on like paragraph 16, right? And you got like 3 lines, right? The core thesis of the film is what happens to people with mental illnesses who are abandoned, right? Like, that's the core thesis of the film. Like, for God's sakes, you've got a scene where the Joker is writing, like, the hardest part of having a mental illness is everyone wants you to act like you don't have one, right? Like, that's fucking important. It's like central to the film. And yet, huge segments of the critics, of the reviewers, absolutely refused to acknowledge the reality of the mental illness arc. They just didn't pay attention to it at all. It just didn't exist. And there is this thing going on in popular culture today, popular Disney culture, really, where we're supposed to like evil people, right? Like, all of the Marvel characters, right? Like, Tony Stark is an arms dealer who, like, literally sells weapons and more often than not creates his own problem, right? Like, Age of Ultron, it's explicit. Like, Ultron is Tony Stark's creation that, like, destroys a whole town. And, like, and we're supposed to be like, oh, wow, yeah, he's the greatest. I'm like, the whole time I watched the entire fucking arc from Iron Man 1 all the way to the, like, last Avengers movie, and the entire time I'm just like, this guy's a piece of shit. Like, this guy's a piece of living garbage. That does he actually, like, earn our honor or earn anything by sacrificing himself in the end? Well, but even that sacrifice doesn't mean anything. Why? Because time travel exists, right? They literally can just, like, go back in time and just bring Tony Stark back. So it's like, even that sacrifice is not really meaningful, right? It's like, and Tony Stark is well aware of this because he invented it, right? Like, we're all just supposed to think that he's the greatest guy in the world because he's, like, a super genius. And which is just, like, sucking the cock of the tech industry in huge ways, if you ask me. And, like a figure like Batman. Like, Batman has significant mental disorders. Like, he literally cannot get over the death of his parents. He witnessed their murder when he was, like, 6 or 10 or whatever. And he just can't get over it. And so instead of using his wealth to actually eliminate poverty, which is a way to undercut criminals and people who actually want to be malicious actors in the society, instead of that, he drops bombs on people, right? Like, he dresses up in a fucking bat suit, for God's sakes. The man has a significant mental illness. And we're supposed to be like, yeah, Batman's good. He's the Dark Knight, defender of Gotham, right? Like, whoa. Like, whoa. Like, pause and think about Batman for 30 seconds. And you realize really quickly, like, oh shit, like, we're calling this guy a hero. Are we still streaming?